Welcome to the pioneering podcast at the intersection of motherhood, mental health, technology, and cannabis. It's Cali Sober Mom. Here's your host, Monica Olano.
Welcome to, I guess, season 2, but kind of season 1.
No, we're calling it season 2.
Well, then you are at season 2, episode 1. Cali Sober Confidential. And if you hear somebody else, and if you've always been curious why I often say we when you've only seen me.
There are, in fact, 2 of us.
There are. So season 2, we will have Miss Brittany Brown, who is my business partner in Cali Sober Mom. You like to say a little hello to a listener that might not have met you yet.
You betcha. So if you actually have been a listener, I was on the podcast not a year ago, maybe like 9 months ago or so. February. So 7 months, I don't know, a bit. But I own a different company called Imperfect Inspiration, and Monica had me on her podcast. And we had a ton of fun, and we started kind of doing stuff together. And as Monica figured out that she wanted to branch out further and do more advocacy and do more reaching out and have more branding, those are all things I do. So she asked if I would come on with her as she switched from Mommy's New Medicine to Cali Sober Mom.
I tell everyone, you're the visual yin to my yang, because people don't believe me when I say this. I cannot see visually. I think you have now learned it because you have worked with me enough to know that, like, I can see something and say, yes, that looks good. But if you tell me to imagine or visualize, I cannot put it together. So me in front of Canva should be a YouTube series because it is a disaster. So Brittany yings my yang. So if anything ever looks beautiful, you're like, that's a really cool graphic. My premise is there, my ideas, my thoughts, my dreams, but Brittany makes it pretty for us. And Brittany is a legend in her own right, not just someone on my podcast or my visual yin and yang. She created an entire world to destigmatize, to make you feel comfortable talking about it, to just own who you are for the ADHD women and mom world. She has over 600,000 followers on TikTok, y'all. When I reached out to her to be on my podcast, I thought she was just going to ignore it. And I didn't even reach out at her at first to be on my podcast. I was like, oh shit, this girl I knew from high school is doing this. And I didn't even know it, but it overlaps. She wouldn't even remember me. But here we are. So she's amazing. If you have not followed her on Imperfect Inspiration, we will link all of that. But Brittany is also a Cali Sober Mom.
I'm a Cali semi-sober mom. So I didn't have the same background that Monica did. She struggled with addiction and a couple of other things with alcoholism. And I didn't have that realm necessarily. Mine was a lot more mental health based. And so alcohol was not typically a very good idea for me with a lot of the meds that I take and a whole bunch of other things. Cannabis has provided a completely different option for me as far as choosing a more chill route with parenting and a more chill affect just in general.
Are we calling it?
We're calling it mild parenting. I don't know if it's gentle, but it's like Johnson & Johnson mild soap. Like, yeah, that shit still stings, but it's not going to hurt you for real.
Not going to sting as bad, but it's really still full of chemicals. What I gather is you learned how to, because we both have ADHD that finally got diagnosed as adult. And I'm realizing in my alcohol struggles and my late ADHD diagnosis is that my dopamine came in one of 2 ways during those pivotal growth teenage years. And we're seeing it now where I love to learn about everything. If something doesn't make sense, I'm going to find out why. I'm going to find out where the bottleneck is, and I'm just going to keep going. And usually that means questioning establishment, questioning tried and true procedures. And that didn't go well in my teenage years. Folks in power did not like that because I wasn't being bad. I wasn't breaking rules. I just had very valid points they didn't want to hear. So I found out really quick to be quiet, work around it, and I chased my dopamine via alcohol. But Brittany seems like she got her dopamine in more creative sources. But we're still dopamine chasers nonetheless.
Yeah, we definitely did it in different ways.
But cool life stories. So in case you don't know, Brittany and I we led separate 20s and 30s. Basically what I did in my 20s was worked enough to party and have fun and meet new people in different areas of life. I moved around the country a little bit, have friends all over the country, and a relationship was never something like that I was working towards or wanted to be in, or probably just didn't find the right one. And I traveled the world by myself. I did some things, got an MBA at 30, and then I met my husband, and then I had kids. And so mine was a little bit different, but Brittany's was really cool because she got to go international. I'll let her tell about it.
Yeah, mine was a little bit of a different world. So I went to college. I took kind of a gap year, mostly because I was burned out from being a near valedictorian and just like doing all of the things. And my counselor was like, "What are you going to go do?" And I was like, "Nothing. I can't. I'm so tired. I can't do anything." We should have been the first sign. It's fine. Don't get me started. I actually have a super great TikTok off track that is about how the best Disney princesses all have signs of neurodivergence. We'll talk about that in a whole other time. So I went to college and went to design school and studied abroad, which was incredible, and got to do that. And then ended up meeting my husband the final year of school and just decided to leave and go live with him. So he was in the military. He still is in the military. And he was stationed in Texas. So I moved down there, which was super neat. I lived in Fort Hood. So it was about 45 minutes from Austin.
Okay. I guess I never knew the Texas aspect.
I did. It was only there for like a year. So sometimes it gets lost in the stories. But we moved to Germany for 3 years after that. And then moved back to the US and ended up, we had for a while been trying to have babies, and that did not pan out. So we ended up fostering and then adopting our oldest, Kate, who was 4 at the time. Evie was 9 months. And then I found out I was pregnant about 2 months later. And then a month after that, we found out their bio mom had another baby. So I went from my 29th birthday with no kids to my 30th birthday with 4. It's the fastest way I can tell that story.
We're driving right now. You did hear that. Please pull over.
I'm so sorry. Please take a short break. It was as traumatic as it sounds. So if there's any questions. So it is one of the areas that Monica and I kind of bond because I didn't have, technically twins, but I had 2 little boys that were 5 months apart and then a little girl who was 14 months older than the 5-month-old. So dope.
How old are your kids now?
They're big now, thank God.
I get to see you, which is so cool. But you know where I've been. And
I do.
And what I love about you is like, you're just there, like whatever. You're not trying to be like, you need to do this. You should really do this. Have you considered this? And I love that. Like I can just come on and say, last night was a shit show. We went to toddler beds. You laugh. We move on because you know it'll get better and you don't preach advice at me, which I love.
I will tell you if there's something that I think you haven't thought of, because sometimes that is the best solution, because I didn't find it out until 3 months after the toddler beds were happening. You know what I mean? So we do have that interaction too, which is super nice. And there's a lot of times where something very corporate will happen in my world. And I chat with you about that because I have literally not been a corporate human my entire life. I have no 401k. I've been an artist my entire life. So sometimes when something weird happens in business, we have to talk about it.
Meanwhile, I have 3 or 4 401ks that I've been spending 3 years now trying to merge together, but ADHD,
good times.
Whatever. What blows my mind, really what blows my mind the most is how parallel of lives that we lived while being completely opposite at the same time.
We're very different.
So Brittany and I were high school locker partners.
assigned, like we didn't pick them.
Also, apparently, having a high school locker partner is not a normal thing. When I tell people this,
Welcome to Des Moines Public Schools.
first they're like, you had a locker partner, which they're shocked by. And then they ask me, but you didn't get to pick them. They were just assigned, which, okay.
Okay, but we also went to the second biggest high school in the state. There were a lot of kids in this school. So it's huge.
2,000 and 2,500 when we went
Oh, I think at least that.
through from there, and they had to break it up. But
Mhm.
so you would think, okay, locker partners, like, you know each other, but no, like, it was a huge school. We had different schedules. We had different groups of friends, different interests. So I honestly don't know if, like, we ever talked.
Literally, it would have been like, oh, hey.
Not to say nothing memorable, but like, you're
No.
the same, so I don't take offense to it. And then when you, like, we both did very well in school with going very little. You were almost valedictorian. I graduated as a sophomore in college with credits, and I went to school 1 day a week, folks. I worked the system. So we were parallel there. Then you went for design. I went for actuarial science. I was a statistics math major.
I literally couldn't think of anything I'd rather do less.
That everyone thought was going to graduate in 3 years, go run the corporate world, right? I was burnt out too, but I didn't even know burnout was a thing. And apparently they make you go to school in college. Why can't, that's a whole nother story too.
No.
But then I bounced around a little bit. I went from Florida State back to Iowa, out to California, bounced around, was about to graduate from University of Northern Iowa with an accounting and finance degree. And my boyfriend at the time had just finished his master's, got a job in New Orleans. And he was like, you're miserable. Why don't you come with me? And so similar to how you left your last year of school, which I didn't even know, and you followed whatever, I just, after a year down here, decided, ooh, New Orleans is kind of my vibe. I don't want to go to Pittsburgh, and I don't want to be married at 21. And then we just created these worlds. Like, you went way amazing in the design world. And then I just fell into corporate America. And I don't want to sound conceited, but anything I do well.
I won't do it if I won't do it well.
I am the first person that's going to find an inefficiency and not bitch about it. Say, oh, here's a time waste. Why don't I learn this skill? It'll fill this gap for you, and then you can get here. And that always made me wildly successful in the corporate world. And then we both went through infertility, not knowing it. My corporate life gave me $100,000 worth of free fertility treatments, which is insane. And I end up with these 3 babies in 18 months. You went the foster and the adoption route and ended up with 4 kids in 1 year.
We do have a lot of them.
Like, I think the world knew. So it like kind of merged us in high school, but not. And then it said, go, go, go. I'm a big believer now in like things happen for a reason. And then life literally came and was like, all right, bitches, it's go time. Like, you have both perfected, not perfect. We're never going to be perfect.
We've certainly endeavored to do it.
Yes. And you guys are ready to do something. And for both of us, that means helping. I don't want to go make a ton of money for somebody else anymore. Like, if they're doing something cool, let me help you do that. But I want to take all this knowledge and these skills and all these things that I have and apply it to something that can help other people.
I agree entirely.
You already did that in the ADHD world. So we're going to take your knowledge of those platforms and how to do those things with my knowledge of how to navigate the corporate business asshole world.
Yep.
And we're going to do something in the cannabis and hemp space, because you may be now using hemp or cannabis and you may have always used it. I don't know. That's really not the point. But right now we're at a very pivotal juncture in what the U.S. is going to do with that. And it's really a time to stand up and say, we want it to be for the consumer, not special interest. And the only way to do that is to educate ourselves. So,
Correct.
So much more than walking into a smoke shop or a dispensary or ordering something online. There's so much education here that has been held from us for a number of years and a plethora of reasons. And that's my monologue of what this is going to be. Brittany and I are going to bring our experiences in. We're going to have a ton of fun with it. I'm going to have fun. If I'm not having fun, I'm probably going to stop the recording, to be honest with you.
Also, Monica, I have purple hair. How can I not have fun? My favorite thing is looking at the two of us. I do hope we post this on YouTube so you guys can see. But I have like weird unhinged shit on my shelves. There's a crown just here. And Monica looks like she's stepped out of Martha Stewart's house. She's got like this light pink cardigan button up. And I have like unhinged looking art life.
For the record, $1.75 at Costco. That's right. When they put the little asterisk, they were clearing out. So I bought it in every color. But it was before I lost all my weight from not drinking.
No, but that's cute. That slouchy style is cute. This is like a 2XL and I'm a medium. This is like, it's a thing. It's what the youths are doing.
Most of what you see behind me, I went to the thrift shop.
Good. That's how it should be.
I actually have no idea what I'm doing. So I threw it on there and I did that on purpose because I knew Brittany would see it and Brittany would be like, we need to make that better.
Well, I did think it in my head, but I didn't say it out loud.
You don't think I knew exactly what I was doing? That's what I learned in corporate America. You can't, if you go to someone, you're like, hey, I need you to do this, then they see it as another task on their plate. Like, oh, this person needs me. But I genuinely tried. It's not that I faked trying.
No, I know.
This is as good as I can do visually.
And you know what? It's a really solid start.
I knew if I got there, you would look at it and be like, I got you, girl. I got you.
I do. I already can see all the levels that need to shift. It's fine. We're doing great.
So that's how Brittany and I balance each other out. So you'll hear and see that. We are going to bring education and fun, whatever.
Monica, why don't we tell them what our major cornerstones are? Because we want you guys to understand the cool parts that we bring to you. So education is a huge component. Cannabis and legislative education, because there are two very specific parts of that. Monica is a really incredible advocate for the cannabis industry. And what's really cool about that for us is that it puts us in line with a bunch of other really neat people doing really cool things. So we're able to make connections with different brands and different flavors, different types of products, all kinds of things. And that puts us in a really unique middleman situation because we're able to find all this stuff for you guys and also be involved in some of the advocacy that's happening at the same time.
Thank you. You're
welcome.
Elevator pitch way better than I ever will.
Another big thing that both of us really believe in is mental health on the whole. And that's something that we'll both touch on a lot because cannabis made a big difference for both of us there. So I think that that's a piece and that's actually probably the biggest piece that ties both of our original companies together because they were both rooted in giving people other options and reality of what mental health as a mom in corporate millennial America looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing for me that's really big is yes, the education, the advocacy, but also the education of like the brain and how it works. So learning that because for so long, I felt that there was so much stigma and there was something wrong with me and that I couldn't handle this or there was this willpower. And the more I'm learning is the more systems were set up in place to disenfranchise myself, to disenfranchise others. And we're all disenfranchised in different ways that we're all fighting these individual battles. But when you start connecting those battles, you realize that they're all coming from very similar places and that by dividing, we're not able to unify together. So it might seem like sometimes that our topics not are all over the place, but you might not think, well, why would that be on a cannabis podcast?
How does that tie in?
How does that tie in? But we are going to bring that all together. And we're also not a cannabis podcast. That's really where I struggled in the first season is because I thought I had to be all things cannabis, and I'm not. Cannabis is a small aspect of my life, but it's a very shiny object in the room right now. But there's so much more that's going to go into that with the alcohol, the chemicals, big pharma, big food, but cannabis and hemp, when we start learning about it as an agricultural commodity, is in everything we touch and can actually unify and bring us together. So
absolutely.
We are really going to have some fun stuff. And every once in a while, I even made it on my note because Brittany will tell you this about me, is I'm going to want to go hard on the stuff all the time. And that's fun for most people. That's fun in my brain because that's where my dopamine's coming from. But you give a fuck about everything I give a.
It's true.
I'm going to try and save the very technical, overly legislative, overly advocate, and try to condense those big messages into one episode, maybe every 4 or 5 weeks. And we'll give you a heads up on that.
I also think that we could potentially do like a political corner, Monica. And I set a 3-minute timer and you can tell us everything about the politics of it, but you have to say it in 3 minutes or less.
Oh my gosh, I love this.
Should we try it? Not right now.
And as Brittany mentioned, all of this is going to be for naught if it's not something you want to hear and you want to listen to. So the reviews are there for a reason, folks. Like, tell us, good, bad.
Yeah.
If you like something, you want to know more about something.
Or if you have questions about something, if there's something that you've struggled to understand, or there is a stigma around something really specific that you want us to talk about, we would love to be a pain in the ass. We love questioning everyone.
The very first question I'm answering in the newsletter, which is going out today. So if you've not signed up for that, go to the website, hit subscribe. They still censor us on social media, which is a joke. So if you want real stuff and not me having to say garden and put a cute little face with it, that's where it'll be. But the number one question I'm asked is, how much cannabis did you have while you were quitting alcohol? That is one question that comes all the time. So I'm answering it in there. I'm going to keep a Q&A section in our newsletter for that, but then we'll also deep dive here. So send them in. Another one, people want to know, what do your in-laws think? What do people in your neighborhood think? So we're going to dive into all of those, but also Brittany and I can't be the experts on everything.
And we're not.
We're not. We are conduits. We know the experts. We know where to find the expert, and we'll bring them to you in a bite-sized piece so you don't have to watch 80 hours of their knowledge to get the fact that you wanted to know. We will do all of that. We'll bring them on to fine-tune any of the other questions or messages that we don't know.
Absolutely.
But that's what we're going to do. We're going to link everything in the show notes. We cannot thank you enough for listening to episode 1. I think you get a feel for who we are and how it's going to be.
It's bedlam, you guys. I'm so sorry. It's just who we are.
We're fine-tuning our schedules. We might start bi-weekly to be honest with ourselves about what we can commit to. And then once we find out how you're liking it, what you want to know, what frequency, we will adjust as needed.
Absolutely.
Keep you posted, but we will be in touch.
Amazing. We hope you guys have an incredible start to the school year. I know that both sets of our babies just came back. We sincerely hope you moms that are listening are enjoying your much more leisurely mornings.
For all of you with a little bit of freedom and a little bit of routine back in your life.
Take a breath.
Yes.
Take a nap. Take a gummy. We'll see you soon.
Yes. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Cali Sober Mom. Don't miss an episode. Follow our show for free on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you're consuming the show right now. And let's keep the conversation going between episodes. Connect with us on social. Just search Cali Sober Mom.